Welcome to Mother's Revenge, where heartfelt stories touch your soul and may even bring you to tears. I stood in the middle of the restaurant's private dining room with my left eye swollen completely shut. The purple and black bruise spread across half my face like spilled ink. Tears, which had washed away my makeup hours ago, streaked my cheeks. 70 people stared at me in complete silence, their champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips, their faces twisted in shock and horror. My wife Stephanie stood right beside me with her arm draped around my shoulders like we were posing for a happy anniversary photo. She was smiling, actually smiling like there was nothing wrong with the way I looked. Like bringing your beaten husband to your anniversary dinner was perfectly normal. Her sisters Jenna and Tara stood behind us, barely containing their laughter. They kept glancing at each other and giggling into their champagne glasses, their eyes sparkling with cruel pride. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me go back 4 days. Back to when I still thought I could make this anniversary perfect. Back when I still believed that if I just tried hard enough, if I was just good enough, everything would be okay. 4 days before our anniversary, I was in our huge kitchen planning every tiny detail of the celebration dinner. I had spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets for seating arrangements, menu choices, decorations. I wanted everything to be flawless because lately Stephanie had been so on edge about everything I did. She had started checking my phone when I was in the shower. She had criticized my clothes before I left the house, making me change 4 or 5 times until she approved. She had gotten angry when I mentioned having coffee with an old friend from work, saying I was trying to embarrass her by gossiping about our marriage, so I canceled the coffee date. Then I just stopped mentioning friends at all. Her sisters visited our house at least 4 times a week now. They walked through my kitchen like they owned it, opening my refrigerator and making comments about everything. Michael Turner, are you really serving this for dinner? Stephanie deserves better. Or, Michael Turner, this house is dusty. Do you not clean? Or my personal favorite, Michael Turner, you have gotten so thin. Are you trying to make our sister look bad by looking sick? I tried so hard to please them. I really did, but nothing was ever good enough. 3 nights before the anniversary, Stephanie's whole family came over for dinner. I had spent all day cooking Stephanie's favorite meal, cleaning the house until it sparkled, setting the table with our fancy dishes. I wore the jacket Stephanie had approved that morning and made sure my appearance was perfect. Everything was going smoothly until I was pouring wine. My hand was shaking because Jenna had just made another comment about how the steak was overcooked. As I poured her glass, some wine splashed onto her dress. Not even that much, just a few drops. But you would have thought I had thrown the entire bottle at her. Jenna jumped up from the table screaming like I had stabbed her. This dress cost a fortune, Michael Turner. You stupid, clumsy idiot. She was yelling so loud that I just froze the wine bottle still in my hand, watching the small red stain spread on her white dress. I immediately started apologizing, grabbing napkins, offering to pay for the cleaning or buy her a new dress. But Stephanie did not defend me. She did not tell her sister to calm down or that it was an accident. Instead, she looked at me with cold disappointment and said, Michael Turner, you are so careless. Can you not do anything right? Her words hurt more than Jenna screaming. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I blinked them back. Crying would only make things worse. So I cleaned up, apologized over and over, and spent the rest of dinner in silence while everyone else talked and laughed like nothing had happened. That night, Stephanie slept in the guest room. She did not say goodnight. She did not explain. She just took her pillow and left me alone in our bed. And I knew it was my punishment for embarrassing her. The next day, the day before our 12th anniversary, I was trying to make things right. I went shopping for a new shirt for the anniversary dinner since Stephanie had not liked any of the ones I already owned. When I got home, Tara was in my living room waiting for me. Stephanie had given her a key months ago without asking me. She watched me carry in my shopping bags with this nasty smile on her face. New shirt trying to impress people. You know, everyone just feels sorry for Stephanie, right? Being married to someone like you. I tried to ignore her and went upstairs to hang up my shirt. It was beautiful dark navy with delicate texture. It had cost more than I wanted to spend, but I thought Stephanie would like it. I laid it carefully on the bed and went to use the bathroom. When I came back 5 minutes later, my shirt had a huge bleach stain down the front. The navy fabric was spotted with white blotches, completely ruined. Tara was standing next to it with a bottle of cleaning spray in her hand, her eyes wide with fake innocence. "Oops," she said. "I was trying to help clean your room and accidentally sprayed your shirt. My bad." I felt something break inside me. I had spent money I had saved from my small marketing associate salary, and she destroyed it on purpose. I could see it in her eyes, and that little smirk she was trying to hide. "Why would you do that?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why do you hate me so much, Taras?" Fake, innocent expression dropped immediately. "Because you are not good enough for this family. You are weak and pathetic, and you make my sister look bad. You need to learn your place, Michael Turner." When Stephanie came home and I tried to tell her what had happened, showing her the ruined shirt, she just sighed like I was exhausting her. "Michael Turner, you are being too sensitive. Tara said it was an accident. Why do you always have to cause drama with my family? You need to learn to get along with them." I wanted to scream that they were the ones causing drama, that they bullied me in my own home. But I did not. I just nodded and apologized for being upset. That was what I always did. Apologize. Stay quiet. Try harder. The morning of our 12th anniversary, I woke up with this heavy feeling in my chest. Stephanie was already downstairs, and I could hear Jenna's and Tara's voices. They were here early. That was never a good sign. I got ready carefully, wearing an older suit since my new shirt was ruined. I styled my hair the way Stephanie liked. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I had lost so much weight over the past year. My cheeks were hollow. My eyes looked tired, no matter how much sleep I got. I looked like a ghost of the man I used to be. My phone rang. It was Rebecca, my twin sister. We used to talk every day, but Stephanie had made that difficult. She would get upset whenever I was on the phone with her, saying she put negative ideas in my head, so our calls had become shorter and less frequent. I answered quickly. "Hey, Rebecca, happy anniversary, Michael Turner." Her voice was so warm and full of life. For a second, I wanted to tell her everything about the wine incident, the shirt, the cold silence, how scared I felt in my own home. But then I heard Stephanie calling my name from downstairs, her tone sharp and impatient. "Thanks, Rebecca. I have to go. We will talk later." "Okay, Michael Turner." "Wait." I hung up before she could finish. I took one last look at myself in the mirror, practiced my smile, and headed downstairs. I had no idea that in a few hours everything would explode in a way I never could have imagined. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, Stephanie was pacing back and forth in our living room like a caged animal. Jenna sat on my couch with her legs crossed, examining her perfectly manicured nails. Tara stood by the window, arms folded across her chest. All three of them turned to look at me when I entered, and the energy in the room felt dangerous. "You were on the phone," Stephanie said. It was not a question, it was an accusation. My heart started beating faster. It was just Rebecca calling to wish us happy anniversary. Just Rebecca. Stephanie repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You mean the sister who has been trying to break us up for 12 years? The one who fills your head with lies about me?" She was not saying anything bad. She was just being nice. I could hear how weak my voice sounded, how apologetic, even though I had not done anything wrong. Stephanie pulled out her phone and held it up. I felt my stomach drop. She had been checking my phone records again. "You talked to her 3 times this week. 3 times Michael Turner. What are you telling her about our private family business?" "Nothing. I swear we just talk about normal things. Her job, my work. Nothing about you or your family." That was partially true. Rebecca had been asking if I was okay, saying I sounded stressed, but I changed the subject every time. Jenna stood up from the couch. He is lying, Stephanie. I can always tell when he is lying. What? Look. I turned to face her. I am not lying about anything. Do not raise your voice at my sister. Stephanie snapped, moving closer to me. See, this is exactly what I am talking about. You are getting defensive and disrespectful. Ever since that wine incident 3 nights ago, you have had this attitude. I could not believe what I was hearing. I do not have an attitude. I apologized 100 times for the wine. I offered to pay for Jenna's dress. What more do you want from me? Tara laughed from across the room. It was a cold, mean sound. What we want is for you to understand that you are part of this family now, and that means showing proper respect. You embarrassed us in front of our parents. You ruined an expensive shirt. And you do not seem sorry at all. I am sorry. My voice was getting louder, and I hated how desperate I sounded. I have been apologizing for 3 hours. I did not mean to spill the wine. It was an accident. Stephanie was right in front of me now, her face inches from mine. Lower your voice when you speak to my sisters. They have been patient with you for 12 years, Michael Turner. 12 years of your mistakes and your failures as a husband. And how do you repay them? By talking behind our backs to your sister. By making scenes at family dinners. By being ungrateful for everything this family has given you. Tears were starting to blur my vision, but I blinked them back. I am not ungrateful. I have tried so hard to be a good husband to make everyone happy. You have tried? Jenna interrupted, stepping closer. You have tried Michael Turner. Trying is not good enough. We do not want effort. We want results. We want you to actually be worthy of being part of this family. I looked at Stephanie, waiting for her to tell her sister she was being too harsh, waiting for her to defend me, to tell them to back off. But she just stood there with her arms crossed, nodding along with every cruel word they said. Stephanie, please, I whispered. It is our 12th anniversary. Can we not do this today? Can we just try to have a nice dinner? Her eyes went cold in a way that made my whole body tense. That is your problem, Michael Turner. You always want to sweep things under the rug. You never want to deal with the real issues. Well, today we are dealing with them because you need to learn your place in this family. My place, I repeated. What does that even mean? Tara moved to stand beside her sister, both of them now forming a wall between me and the door. It means you are not equal to us. You married into this family, but you did not earn your spot. You are like a guest who has overstayed their welcome. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was 12 years of biting my tongue. Maybe it was the exhaustion of trying to be perfect every single day. Maybe it was the way they were all looking at me like I was nothing. I am her husband. We have been married for 12 years. I have done everything you have asked. I have changed who I am to fit into this family. What more do you want? The silence that followed my outburst was terrifying. Stephanie's jaw clenched. Jenna's eyes narrowed. Tara smiled like I had just walked into a trap. There it is, Stephanie said quietly. Your real feelings finally coming out. You think you have sacrificed so much. You think we should be grateful to you. That is not what I meant. Shut up. Her voice was so sharp that I actually flinched. I am tired of your excuses. I am tired of your victim act, and I am especially tired of you embarrassing me and my sisters. Jenna turned to Stephanie with this awful gleam in her eye. You know what, sister, I think Michael Turner needs a lesson he will not forget. He needs to understand that actions have consequences. My heart started pounding. Something about the way she said it, the way Stephanie's expression shifted, made every alarm bell in my head start ringing. What are you talking about? Stephanie looked at her sisters, then back at me. They are right. You have been coddled for too long. Every time you mess up, I just let it go. Well, not anymore. Jenna Tara. I think it is time you taught my husband some respect. Stephanie. What does that mean? I could hear the fear in my own voice. You are scaring me. Good, she said simply. Maybe if you were scared more often, you would behave better. Jenna stepped forward and I automatically stepped back. This is going to hurt us more than it hurts you, Michael Turner, but it is for your own good. Before I could react, before I could even process what was happening, Jenna's hand flew across my face. The slap was so hard that my head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across my cheek. My ear was ringing. I stumbled backward in shock, my hand flying up to touch my burning face. What I started to say, but Tara was already moving. She shoved me hard with both hands. I was not ready for it. My feet tangled together as I tried to catch my balance. I fell backward and the sharp corner of our coffee table rushed up to meet my face. The impact sent white-hot pain shooting through my skull. I hit the floor hard, my vision going blurry. I could feel something wet and warm running down from my eyebrow. Blood. I touched my face and my fingers came away red. I looked up from the floor, my eye already starting to swell, blood trickling down my face. Stephanie was standing above me with her arms crossed. She did not look angry anymore. She looked satisfied. Maybe now, she said calmly, you will remember to show my family the respect they deserve. Jenna and Tara were straightening their clothes, fixing their hair like they had just finished a workout instead of attacking someone. Tara checked her reflection in the mirror above our fireplace and smiled at what she saw. Clean yourself up, Jenna said, not even looking at me on the floor. We have an anniversary dinner to attend in 2 hours. And Michael Turner, if you tell anyone what really happened here, Stephanie will make sure everyone knows what a clumsy, lying husband you are. Will you not, Stephanie? Absolutely, she agreed. Now get upstairs and make yourself presentable. And if you embarrass this family tonight, what just happened will seem gentle. Understood. I could not speak. I could not move. I just lay there on the floor of my own living room, blood running down my face, staring up at the woman I had married 12 years ago. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved. She was not that person anymore. Or maybe she never had been. I said understood. Yes, I whispered. Good. Now go. I somehow got to my feet. My legs shaking so badly I could barely stand. I walked past all 3 of them, not looking at any of their faces, and made my way upstairs to the bathroom. Behind me I could hear them laughing about something, their voices light and casual like nothing had just happened. I locked the bathroom door and finally looked at myself in the mirror. My left eye was already swelling, the skin around it turning dark purple. Blood was still coming from the cut above my eyebrow. My cheek was bright red from the slap already starting to bruise. I looked like someone who had been beaten because I had been. My phone was in my pocket. It buzzed. Another call from Rebecca. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I stared at her name on the screen. My twin sister, my best friend, the person I had been lying to for months about how bad things had gotten. This time I answered. Rebecca. I whispered, my voice breaking. I need you. Come now. I am coming right now. Do not hang up. Stay on the phone with me. Rebecca's voice was sharp and focused, but I could hear the panic underneath. Michael Turner. Tell me exactly what happened. I could not stop crying. The words came out in broken pieces. Stephanie's sisters. They hit me. Jenna slapped me, and Tara pushed me, and I fell into the coffee table. My eye. Rebecca, it is so bad. There is blood, and it is swelling. And Stephanie just stood there and watched them do it. She told them to teach me respect. I heard something crash on Rebecca's end like she had knocked something over. I am getting in my car right now. I am 3 hours away, but I will make it in 2.5. Michael Turner, listen to me. You need to leave that house right now. Get out. Go to a neighbor. Go anywhere. I cannot. I was looking at my destroyed face in the mirror, dabbing at the blood with a towel. She said if I do not show up to the anniversary dinner, if I embarrass her, it will be worse. She said she will tell everyone I am crazy and lying. And Rebecca, I believe her. You should see the way she looked at me, like I am not even human to her anymore. Michael, please. There are 50 people coming to this dinner. Her whole family, her business partners, mom and dad. If I do not show up, she will have some story ready. She always does. I swallowed hard, my voice dropping to a whisper, even though the bathroom door was locked. But if I go, if everyone sees what they did to me, they cannot lie about it. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I could hear her car starting. The sound of her pulling out of wherever she was filled my ear. Okay. Here is what we are going to do. You go to that dinner. You do not hide what they did. Let everyone see your face. I am going to drive as fast as I can, and I will be there before dessert. Can you hold on until then? I am so scared, I whispered. The swelling around my eye was getting worse. I could barely see out of it anymore. I know Michael Turner. I know you are. But you are stronger than you think. You have survived 12 years with that monster. You can survive 2 more hours. And when I get there, we are ending this. All of it tonight. There was something in Rebecca's voice that made me believe her, something fierce and protective that I had been missing for so long. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to do to protect my brother now. Put me on speaker and start covering that bruise as best you can. Not to hide it completely, but so Stephanie thinks you are trying to cooperate. I will stay on the line as long as I can. For the next hour, Rebecca stayed on the phone while I tried to make myself look presentable. I could hear her car in the background, the sound of the highway, occasionally her cursing at slow traffic. She kept talking to me, keeping me calm, reminding me to breathe. The makeup could not hide the damage. No amount of concealer could cover the dark purple spreading across my eye. The swelling made my face look lopsided. The cut above my eyebrow kept bleeding through the foundation. I looked exactly like what I was, a man who had been beaten. They are going to see it, I told Rebecca. Everyone is going to see it. Good, she said fiercely. Let them see what she did to you. Let them all see. A knock on the bathroom door made me jump. Michael, we are leaving in 10 minutes. Are you ready? Stephanie called. Yes, I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. You better not have any makeup running down your face. And do not you dare tell anyone what really happened. Remember what I said. I waited until I heard her footsteps going back downstairs. Did you hear that I whispered to Rebecca? I heard it. I am recording everything you tell me. Keep your phone in your pocket at the dinner if you can. Try to record her voice. She paused. Michael Turner. I am so sorry. I should have made you leave years ago. I should have. This is not your fault, I interrupted. I made my choices. I stayed when I should have left. I kept hoping she would change back into the person I married. She was never that person, Rebecca said quietly. That was a mask. This is who she really is. I knew she was right. Deep down I had known for years. I had just been too scared to admit it. I have to go, I said. She is calling me again. I am 2 hours away now. I will be there soon. Be brave, Michael Turner. I love you. I love you too. I hung up and looked at myself one last time. The man in the mirror looked broken and terrified. But somewhere underneath all that fear, I felt something else stirring. Anger. Real anger that I had been pushing down for 12 years. The drive to the Harborview restaurant felt like riding in a car with strangers. Stephanie sat in the driver's seat, not looking at me, not speaking. Jenna and Tara were in the back seat taking selfies and giggling. Every few minutes, one of them would make a comment. Wow, Michael Turner. That is quite a shiner you have got there, Tara said with fake sympathy. You really should be more careful around furniture. Maybe he will finally learn to watch where he is going," Jenna added, and they both burst into laughter. Stephanie glanced at me. Her eyes went to my face, taking in the damage her sisters had done. For just a second, I thought I saw something. Regret, maybe, or shame. But then it was gone, replaced by that cold indifference. "Remember what we talked about," she said. "You tell everyone you had an accident. You were rushing around getting ready and you fell. That is the story. Stick to it." I did not answer. I just stared out the window, watching the buildings go by, feeling my phone heavy in my pocket. 2 hours. I just had to survive 2 more hours until Rebecca got there. When we pulled up to the restaurant, I could see the private dining room through the windows. It was beautiful, decorated with flowers and candles. People were already arriving dressed in elegant clothes, holding champagne glasses. They all looked so happy, so normal. They had no idea what they were about to witness. Stephanie came around to open my door, playing the role of the loving wife. She took my arm to help me out of the car, and her grip was too tight, her fingers digging into my skin. "A warning. Smile," she whispered in my ear. "And remember one wrong word and you will regret it." Jenna and Tara flanked us as we walked toward the entrance. They were like bodyguards, making sure I did not run, making sure I played my part. The restaurant manager greeted us warmly, leading us toward the private dining room. I could hear voices and laughter from inside. My parents were probably already there. Stephanie's business partners. All these people who thought they were celebrating a happy marriage. Stephanie paused at the entrance. She positioned me right in the doorway where everyone would see us when we walked in. She wanted to make an entrance. She always loved being the center of attention. "Ready?" she asked, like we were about to walk into a party and not my public humiliation. I was not ready. I would never be ready for this. But I nodded anyway, because what choice did I have? Stephanie pushed open the door and we stepped into the dining room together. Her arm was around my shoulders, pulling me close to her side. The effect was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Champagne glasses froze in the air. Every single person turned to look at us, and I watched their expressions change from joy to confusion to absolute horror. They were staring at my face, at my swollen purple eye, at the cut above my eyebrow, at the bruising on my cheek. Some people gasped. Others put their hands over their mouths. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Stephanie's arm tightened around my shoulders. She was smiling, actually smiling, like there was nothing wrong with any of this. Then she spoke, her voice carrying across the silent room. "I know what you are all thinking. My beautiful husband had a little accident." She paused, and I felt her look down at me with that satisfied smile. "Actually, it was my sisters. They taught him some respect." Jenna and Tara stepped forward from behind us. They were laughing, actually laughing, raising their champagne glasses like they were making a toast, like they had accomplished something to be proud of. The room stayed frozen in horrified silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared at us like we were monsters. That was when I heard it. The sound of the door behind us slamming open so hard it hit the wall. Everyone turned to look at who had just burst into the room. And there was Rebecca. My twin sister stood in the doorway like an avenging angel. Her hair was wild from driving with the windows down, her jeans and leather jacket completely out of place among all the elegant dinner clothes. But it was her eyes that made everyone take a step back. They were blazing with a fury I had never seen before, not even when we were kids fighting on the playground. For a moment, nobody moved. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. People looked from Rebecca to me and back again, confused by seeing two identical faces, except one was beaten and broken, and the other looked ready to burn the whole world down. "Mom," my mother gasped. "Rebecca." My father stood up from his seat, his face a mixture of relief and worry. He knew what was about to happen. He had seen Rebecca like this before years ago when a kid at school had bullied me. She had given that kid a black eye and 2 weeks of detention. She was 12 years old then. Now she was 32, trained in kickboxing and absolutely terrifying. Stephanie's arm loosened around my shoulders. I felt her tense beside me. "Rebecca," she said, trying to sound calm and in control. "This is a private family celebration. You were not invited." Rebecca did not even acknowledge she had spoken. She walked straight toward us, her boots loud on the hardwood floor. Every step was deliberate, powerful. She moved like a fighter entering a ring, and everyone in the room seemed to sense it. People were backing away, clearing a path. She stopped right in front of us. Her eyes went to my face, taking in every detail of the damage. I saw her jaw clench, saw her hands curl into fists at her sides. Then she looked at Stephanie, and the expression on her face made Stephanie actually take a step backward. "You let your sisters beat my twin," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire room. "You let them hurt him. And then you brought him here to show everyone what you did to humiliate him." "Now wait just a minute," Stephanie started, but Rebecca cut her off. "I am not talking to you yet." She turned to face Jenna, who was still standing there with her champagne glass, her smile faltering. "You slapped my brother, did you not?" Jenna's eyes darted to Stephanie, looking for help. "I do not know what Michael told you, but do not lie to me." Rebecca moved closer to her. This entire room just heard Stephanie admit it. "You taught Michael respect." Those were her exact words. "So let me ask you again. You slapped him hard enough to leave a mark, did you not?" The silence stretched out. Jenna's face was turning red. He needed to learn. That was all she got out before Rebecca's hand flew across her face with a crack that echoed through the room. The slap was so fast, so precise, that half the people did not even see it happen. They just heard the sound and saw Jenna stumble backward, dropping her champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, the sound sharp in the silence. Jenna's hand flew to her cheek, her eyes wide with shock. "You hit me!" she screamed. "You cannot! I just did!" Rebecca's voice was ice cold. "That is exactly what you did to Michael Turner. Now you know what it feels like." Tara let out a sound of rage and charged at Rebecca. She came at her with her arms outstretched, trying to shove or grab or hurt her somehow. But Rebecca had been training people in self-defense for 10 years. She had spent thousands of hours in gyms teaching women how to protect themselves from attackers. Tara never stood a chance. Rebecca sidestepped smoothly like a dancer avoiding a clumsy partner. She used Tara's own momentum against her, guiding her forward with just a touch to her shoulder. Tara's hip hit the edge of the buffet table the same way I had hit the coffee table, and she went down hard. She hit the floor with a thud, and when she looked up, there was blood trickling from above her eyebrow, the exact same spot where I had been cut. Her eye was already starting to swell, the skin around it turning red and then purple. Tara touched her face, and her fingers came away bloody. She started crying loud, gasping sobs. She attacked me. Everyone saw it. She attacked me. The room erupted. People were shouting, some moving forward, others backing away. Stephanie's business partners looked horrified. Her parents were trying to get to their daughters. My parents were trying to get to me. Back then, I still believed my father, Edward Collins, was simply a quiet, protective man. I had no idea he was carrying shadows I had never seen, but Rebecca was not done. She turned to Stephanie, who had gone pale. Stephanie looked around the room, desperately trying to find allies, trying to regain control of the situation. "Someone call the police!" she shouted. "She just assaulted my sisters. Everyone here is a witness." Rebecca pulled out her phone. She held it up high so everyone could see. "I have been recording since I walked in. This entire room heard you admit that your sisters beat Michael Turner. They heard Jenna and Tara laughing about it, and everyone just watched as Tara charged at me first. She turned in a slow circle, making eye contact with people around the room. "Every single person here is a witness to what you did to my brother. You brought him to this dinner with a black eye and bruises. You announced to 70 people that your sisters attacked him to teach him respect, and you were proud of it." Stephanie's face was turning red. "That is not, you are twisting. Michael fell. He had an accident." "Did he?" Rebecca's voice got louder. "Is that what happened, Stephanie? Because 2 minutes ago you told everyone your sisters taught him respect. You cannot have it both ways." Stephanie lunged at Rebecca. I screamed without meaning to. But Rebecca was ready. She turned to face her head on, her stance wide and balanced. The look in her eyes made Stephanie freeze mid-step. "Touch me," she said quietly, "and I will put you on the floor like I did your sister. And unlike you, I fight fair. No ambushing, no ganging up 3 against 1, just you and me. You want to try?" Stephanie's hands were shaking with rage or fear. I could not tell. "You came into our anniversary dinner and attacked my family," Stephanie shouted. "No." Rebecca's voice cut through her words like a knife. "You attacked Michael Turner. You let your sisters beat him in his own home. You brought him here to parade your control over him. You wanted everyone to see that you broke him, that he belongs to you, that he is so scared he will stand there with a black eye and not say a word against you." She stepped closer to her. "But here is what you did not count on. You did not count on me. You spent 12 years keeping Michael away from me because you knew I would never let this happen. You knew I would protect him. And that is exactly what I just did." Rebecca turned to address the whole room. Her voice was strong and clear. "Everyone here heard Stephanie admit her sisters attacked Michael Turner. You all saw them laughing about it. What you just witnessed was me defending my twin brother from his abusers. These 2," she gestured at Jenna, and Tara confessed to assault. They were proud of it. They thought there would be no consequences. She looked back at Stephanie. "Well, here are the consequences." Jenna was still on the floor, holding her red, swollen cheek, crying. Tara was next to her, blood running down from her eyebrow, her eye swelling shut. They looked exactly like they had made me look, like victims of violence, like people who had been hurt. "How does it feel?" Rebecca asked them. "How does it feel to be on the receiving end? To know what it is like to be hit, to be powerless, to hurt?" Neither of them answered. They just cried harder. Stephanie's parents finally pushed through the crowd. Her mother was horrified, looking at her daughters on the floor. Her father's face was red with anger. "What have you done?" he demanded, looking at Rebecca. "You will be arrested for this." "Will I?" Rebecca pulled out her phone again. "Because I have a recording of your daughter admitting her sisters attacked Michael Turner first. I have video of Tara charging at me. I have 70 witnesses who heard everything. So let us call the police right now. Let us see who gets arrested." Stephanie's father opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at his daughter, and I saw something change in his expression. Maybe understanding, maybe disgust, maybe just the realization that this was indefensible. Rebecca finally walked over to me. She gently touched my face, examining my injuries up close. Tears were streaming down my cheeks. I had not even realized I was crying. "I am so sorry I did not get here sooner," she whispered. "But I am here now, and we are leaving." "You are not taking him anywhere," Stephanie said, but her voice was weak now, uncertain. Rebecca turned to her one last time. "Watch me." Rebecca put her arm around my shoulders, gentle, protective. Nothing like Stephanie's controlling grip. She started leading me toward the door. Stephanie moved to block our path. "Michael Turner is my husband. He is not going anywhere with you." That was when my father stepped forward. My quiet, gentle father who had spent his whole life avoiding conflict. He positioned himself between Stephanie and us. And when he spoke, his voice was steady and cold. "If you touch either of my children," he said, "you will have to go through me first. And daughter, I may be old, but I promise you do not want that fight." Then he pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to Rebecca. My father, Edward Collins, had always been discreet, almost secretive, even when he was defending me. I did not yet understand that he had been hiding his own unraveling for years. "What is this?" she asked. "Evidence," my father said, not taking his eyes off Stephanie. 3 years' worth of recordings, photographs, testimony from neighbors, everything I could document about what she has been doing to Michael Turner. My mother appeared beside him. "We have been building a case," she said quietly, waiting for the right moment, waiting for Michael to be ready. I stared at my parents in shock. They had known. They had been watching. They had been preparing to help me this whole time. "Mom." "Dad," I started, but my mother just hugged me carefully, avoiding my injuries. "We are so sorry we waited so long," she said. "But you are safe now. We are taking you home." Rebecca looked at Stephanie one final time. "This marriage is over. Michael Turner is coming with us, and if you or your sisters come near him again, what happened tonight will seem gentle. Do you understand me?" Stephanie just stood there frozen as we walked past her toward the door. Behind us, the room was chaos. People arguing, Jenna and Tara still crying on the floor. Stephanie's parents trying to understand what had just happened. But I did not look back. For the first time in 12 years, I walked away from Stephanie with my head up because my sister was beside me, my parents were behind me, and I was not alone anymore. We sat in Rebecca's car in the parking lot for what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes. I could not stop shaking. My whole body was trembling like I had been dropped in ice water. Rebecca kept her arms wrapped around me while I cried, really cried for the first time in years. Not quiet tears I had to hide, loud, gasping sobs that hurt my chest. "Why did you do that?" I finally asked when I could speak again. "Why did you hit them back?" Rebecca pulled away just enough to look me in the eyes. "Because I have spent 10 years teaching women how to defend themselves. I have watched hundreds of abuse victims come through my gym learning to fight back, learning they are not powerless. And the whole time my own brother was being hurt, and I could not stop it. I could not make you leave. I could not protect you." She wiped tears from her own cheeks. "So when I walked in there and saw what they did to your face, saw them laughing about it like it was funny, something in me just snapped. They needed to understand what they did. They needed to feel it. Words were not going to work with people like that. The only language bullies really understand is their own, but you could get in trouble. They could press charges. Let them try." Rebecca's voice was fierce. Stephanie admitted in front of 70 witnesses that her sisters attacked you first. I was defending you from confessed attackers. My lawyer will eat them alive. My parents tapped on the car window. Dad was holding his jacket over Mom's shoulders because the night had gotten cold. Rebecca rolled down the window. "We should go," Dad said. "People are starting to leave the restaurant. We do not want to be here when Stephanie comes out." "Come to our house," Mom added. "Both of you, tonight and for as long as Michael needs." We drove in a caravan, Rebecca's car, following my parents' car through streets I had driven down 1,000 times. But everything looked different now. The world felt different. I felt different. Inside my parents' house, the house I grew up in, Mom made tea while Dad set up the guest room. Rebecca sat beside me on the couch, holding my hand like we were kids again, like we used to do during thunderstorms when we were scared. "What happens now?" I asked. Dad came back downstairs with the thick envelope he had given Rebecca. He spread the contents across the coffee table. Photographs of bruises I thought I had hidden well. recordings of arguments that neighbors had heard through thin walls, a journal where he documented every time I had canceled plans, every time I had lost weight, every time my smile did not reach my eyes. I knew something was wrong. 3 years ago, Dad said, your mother and I both did. But you kept saying everything was fine. You kept defending her, so we started documenting everything, building a case for when you were ready to leave. Mom sat down with the tea. We talked to a lawyer 9 months ago. She said we had enough for a restraining order and a strong divorce case. We were just waiting for you. I could not believe what I was hearing. You did all this for me. You are our son, Mom said simply. Of course we did. Over the next few hours, they laid out a plan. Tomorrow, we would file for a restraining order against Stephanie, Jenna, and Tara. We would file assault charges against the sisters. We would start divorce proceedings with a lawyer who specialized in abuse cases. We would get me somewhere safe where Stephanie could not find me. My phone would not stop buzzing. Stephanie had called 58 times. Her messages went from angry to desperate to threatening. Rebecca finally just turned my phone off. You do not owe her anything, she said. Not an explanation, not a conversation, nothing. That night, I could not sleep. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The look on Jenna's face when Rebecca slapped her. The sound of Tara hitting the floor. The way Stephanie's confidence had crumbled when she realized she had lost control. Rebecca came into the guest room around 3:00 in the morning and climbed into bed next to me just like when we were little and one of us had a nightmare. Do you think I am a bad person? I whispered. For feeling glad that they got hurt. For wanting them to feel what I felt. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I think you are human. They hurt you for years and faced no consequences. Tonight, they finally understood what their victim felt. That does not make you bad. It makes you honest. People are going to say revenge is wrong, that violence is never the answer. Those people have probably never been cornered in their own home by 3 people who want to hurt them. They have never spent 12 years being slowly destroyed by someone who promised to love them. Rebecca turned to face me in the dark. You tried everything else, Michael Turner. You tried being kind. You tried being patient. You tried changing yourself to make her happy. None of it worked. Sometimes the only thing that stops a bully is facing their own cruelty. The next few weeks were a blur. The restraining orders were approved immediately. The judge took one look at the photographs of my face and the recording of Stephanie's confession and did not hesitate. Jenna and Tara were charged with assault. They tried to claim self-defense, but too many witnesses had heard them bragging about teaching me respect. Stephanie tried to fight the divorce, but her own words at the anniversary dinner destroyed any defense she could make. Her lawyer advised her to settle. She lost a significant portion of our assets because of the documented abuse. Her business reputation was ruined. Several of her partners who had been at the dinner quietly ended their relationships with her. The local news picked up the story. Anniversary dinner turns into assault confession, read one headline. Stephanie's family tried to control the narrative, but too many people had been there. Too many people had heard everything. Jenna and Tara both ended up pleading guilty to avoid trial. They got probation community service and mandatory anger management classes. The judge also ordered them to stay at least 150 yards away from me at all times. I heard through mutual friends that Stephanie had become a pariah in her social circles. Her own parents had distanced themselves from her, embarrassed by what their daughter had done. Her sisters blamed her for everything, saying she had encouraged their behavior toward me for years. 9 months later, I was sitting in a small apartment near Rebecca's place, looking healthier than I had in years. I had gained back the weight I had lost. The hollow look in my eyes was gone. I had started working again at a firm near my parents. I had even joined Rebecca's self-defense classes. At first, I had been terrified to learn how to fight. But Rebecca explained it was not about violence. It was about knowing you could protect yourself, about never being helpless again. I was working on my photography again, too. something I had given up during my marriage because Stephanie said it was a waste of time. The print in front of me showed two people who looked identical but stood differently. One was crouched low, hurt and scared. The other stood tall, protective and strong. I titled it, Twin Flames. Rebecca came home with Chinese food and we ate straight from the containers sitting on the floor like college students. I got a message today, I said, from a woman named Allison. She was at the anniversary dinner. She is leaving her husband because of what happened. I nodded to myself. She said watching me stand there with that black eye and then watching you defend me made her realize she did not have to accept being hurt anymore. She asked if I could talk to her, help her through it. Rebecca smiled. Are you going to? Yeah, I think I am. I looked at the photograph the two versions of myself. I had spent 12 years being the scared one, the hurt one. Maybe it was time to be the strong one for someone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Allison. She was asking about restraining orders, about lawyers, about how to leave safely. I typed back a long response offering to meet her and help however I could. As I hit send, I thought about something Rebecca had said that night in the car, about how bullies only understand their own language. People had been horrified by what Rebecca did, slapping Jenna, letting Tara fall the same way I had fallen. They called it revenge. They called it wrong. But those same people had been ready to ignore my black eye to accept Stephanie's explanation of an accident, to let Jenna and Tara laugh about teaching me respect without any consequences. The truth was, nothing else would have worked. Stephanie would have spun some story about me being clumsy. Her sisters would have denied everything. I would have gone home with her that night and the abuse would have continued, maybe gotten worse. What Rebecca did was extreme. It was shocking. It made people uncomfortable. But it also made them pay attention. It made them witnesses to something they could not ignore or explain away. And it gave me the opening I needed to escape. I stood up and walked to the window looking out at the Shoreview lights. Somewhere out there, Stephanie was living with the consequences of her actions. Her sisters were living with theirs. And I was here free, healing, helping another woman find her own freedom. Do you have any regrets? Rebecca asked from behind me. About how it all ended. I thought about it carefully. About the violence, about the public humiliation, about watching Jenna and Tara hurt the same way they had hurt me. No, I said finally. People say I should feel guilty, that I should wish it had ended differently, more peacefully. But those people were not married to Stephanie for 12 years. They did not feel her control tightening around them like a noose. They did not spend a decade being torn down piece by piece. I turned to face my sister. You gave them one moment of understanding what their victim felt. One moment of consequences. That is not revenge. That is justice. Rebecca stood up and hugged me. I love you, Michael Turner. I love you too. Thank you for coming when I called. Thank you for fighting for me when I could not fight for myself. Always, she whispered. That is what siblings do. Later that night, alone in my room, I looked at myself in the mirror. The bruises were long gone. My eye had healed. But the person looking back at me was different from the man I had been 9 months ago. I was stronger, freer, more myself than I had been in a decade. Some people might judge how my marriage ended. They might say violence is never justified, that Rebecca should have called the police instead. That revenge makes you as bad as your abuser. But those people have never been where I was. They have never felt so trapped, so powerless, so completely broken, that they could not see a way out. Sometimes people need to face their own cruelty to understand it. Sometimes the only thing that breaks through to a bully is becoming their victim, even if just for a moment. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone fight for you when you cannot fight for yourself. I picked up my phone and texted Allison back tomorrow at Harborline Cafe on Cedar Avenue. You are not alone anymore. I promise. Then I turned off the light and went to sleep in my own bed in my own apartment with no one controlling when I came or went or who I talked to. I was free, and I was never going back. That final quiet declaration was not the end, but the foundation of a new reality. My world had stabilized, defined by my success, my chosen family, and the sturdy, unshakable boundary I had finally built. Yet boundaries, I was learning, did not stop the wind from blowing. They merely determined who got to stand inside the fortress. The silence from my father, Edward Collins, had continued a deep, telling void in my life. It was a silence that spoke of broken ego, not regret. But 5 weeks after that Thanksgiving gathering with Logan and my chosen family, the tranquility of my new life was breached by a sudden jarring email. The subject line was simply, Edward Collins, personal update. Yes, T, when I thought every loose thread in my life had finally been tied off. My father, Edward Collins, revealed complications I never imagined. C. It was not from Edward, of course. It was from Philip Hayes, my attorney. I had instructed Philip to act as a permanent firewall, intercepting all legal or financial communication from my parents. I opened the message with a detached curiosity I had not possessed a year ago. The email was concise, professional, and devastatingly factual. Edward's financial collapse, which Logan had alluded to, was worse than we knew. His forced sale of the real estate firm to his partners had not stabilized the situation. It had triggered an avalanche of debt and legal claims. One of the claims specifically related to an old partnership agreement and some dubious land deals in the 2008 crash that Edward had quietly obscured, was now demanding a massive financial settlement he absolutely could not pay. The most crucial detail was buried in the third paragraph. Edward Collins was filing for personal bankruptcy as a contingency, and in a move that reeked of manipulative desperation. He was seeking to challenge the validity of my swift removal as a signatory from his last remaining business account, the one I had joined just in case. Philip Hayes was confident we could squash the motion easily, but the email ended with a warning. Given the circumstances, your father's new counsel has indicated they may attempt to contact you directly to pressure a family-based settlement outside of court. Remain firm and direct all communication through me. Do not respond to any emotional appeals. I read the email twice, feeling the cold weight of the past trying to drag me back down. This was not about love or reconciliation. It was a Hail Mary pass from a man drowning in his own hubris, still seeing me as his most reliable lifeboat. The old Michael Turner would have felt crippling guilt, the conditioned need to be the responsible one, and save the family name. The new Michael Turner felt only a profound, protective anger. I called Natalie immediately. I needed to anchor myself back in reality, away from the legal jargon and the phantom chains of obligation. They are still trying to use you, Michael, Natalie said, her voice sharp with protective indignation. We were at my apartment sipping coffee while the morning sun streamed in over the Blue Ridge Mountains. He is trying to claim I was an essential part of his business structure, and my sudden withdrawal somehow caused him financial harm, I explained, running a hand through my hair. It is garbage, Philip said, but the sheer audacity of it. It is classic Edward, Natalie replied, setting her mug down. He never solves a problem. He just finds someone else to pay for it. The only difference is this time you filed the divorce papers first. You cut him off from the ATM. The bankruptcy is sad. I conceded, leaning against the kitchen island. Not for him, maybe, but for the wreckage it causes. Logan's mom, the other family in Cincinnati. Natalie looked at me with deep sincerity. You are allowed to feel sad for the situation, Michael, but you are not allowed to feel guilty for not setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. You chose freedom. You chose your worth. Her words were the shield I needed. I spent the next 2 weeks focused relentlessly on my work, channeling the agitated energy into a pitch for a major tech account. The drive to succeed was no longer about earning Edward's approval, but about fortifying the life I had earned, a life that was immune to his manipulation. Then the true conflict began. I returned home late one Thursday night, exhausted but exhilarated after closing the tech deal. As I unlocked my apartment door, I noticed a figure sitting on the bench outside the unit, partially obscured by the hallway light fixture. My first thought was a neighbor. My second was a sense of profound, unwelcome recognition. Sitting there, hunched and looking older than his years, was Edward Collins. My blood ran cold. He had not called, had not emailed, had not sent any notice. He was in Spokane on my doorstep, hundreds of miles from his crumbling empire in St. Louis. "Hello, Michael," he said, his voice raspy and low. It lacked the resonant authority I was accustomed to. It sounded small, defeated. I did not step into the apartment. I stood framed in the doorway, the light from inside illuminating the hardness in my expression. "You should not be here, Dad. You know I communicate only through Philip Hayes." He struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on a cane I had never seen before. "I flew out this morning. I had to see you. This is not about lawyers, son. This is family. Family." The word was a weapon in his mouth. "That is a narrative you destroyed," Edward I replied, using his first name intentionally, a boundary marker. "Philip has my instructions. You are violating my explicit request for space." He ignored the statement, his eyes darting to my face, searching for a flicker of the old, compliant Michael. "Rebecca told me about the promotion. Executive Creative Director. I am proud of you. I always knew you had my drive." The compliment landed like a punch. He was trying to invoke the conditional love, the measured approval I had spent 35 years chasing. Do not what he challenged, a hint of his old anger returning. Do not be a father. "I came all this way, Michael. I have not been sleeping. I am ill. I need to talk to my son." "You came here because you are desperate, not because you are ill," I countered, my voice low and steady. "You are trying to circumvent legal process and leverage my emotional connection to you for financial gain. I warned you this would not work." The fight went out of him. The mask of the successful businessman crumbled, revealing a man utterly terrified. He took a staggering step forward, and I instinctively stepped back, putting distance between us. "The bankruptcy filing is a formality, Michael," he pleaded, his voice cracking, "but the partners are moving to liquidate everything. Logan, your mother, me, we will be ruined. I need capital, not a lawyer. I need you to step in as the responsible one. The responsible one is the one who set boundaries and protected himself from this inevitable collapse," I stated firmly. "You had 35 years to be responsible, Edward. You chose secrets, lies, and neglect. You chose a second family in Cincinnati and expected me to be your safety net." He flinched visibly at the mention of Cincinnati, glancing around the hallway. "Rebecca told you that, woman. It was a mistake a long time ago. She used me. But this is different, Michael. This is the Collins name, your heritage." 57-17. My heritage is a three-way call demanding money for a trip I was not invited to, I said, a bitter clarity washing over me. My heritage is a lifetime of feeling less than enough. I severed those ties. The Collins name means nothing to me now but debt and emotional extortion. He grasped my arm, his grip surprisingly weak. "I only need you to sign one document, a guarantee. It buys me time." I looked down at his hand on my sleeve. This was the moment of ultimate conflict, the logic of my newfound self-worth against the deeply ingrained emotional command of family first. The urge to comply, to make the bad feelings stop, was a ghost of my former self. I forced myself to look him in the eye. "Let go of me, Edward." He refused, the desperation tightening his grip. "You will not even look at the documents. You will not hear me out." "I do not need to," I replied, my voice dangerously flat. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone, and opened a newly composed text message. I came home expecting a win celebration, not a confrontation. I am calling building security. And then I am calling Philip. You have 30 seconds to leave the premises before I press send. His eyes widened in genuine shock. He had not expected the golden son to call the police on him. The fear of public exposure of losing his carefully curated image of control, even in his downfall, was more potent than any financial threat. He yanked his hand back as if burned. You are throwing away your family. Michael, he whispered, venom laced with sorrow. You are making a huge mistake. I made my mistake years ago trying to earn love that was not for sale, I said, finally stepping into my apartment and blocking the entrance with my body. I am done with the sale. Now leave. He stood for another long moment, defeated, the cane clutched in his hand. He turned the heavy silence of the hallway, swallowing the sound of his shuffling footsteps as he retreated toward the elevator. I did not close the door until the elevator doors shut on his retreating figure. I leaned against the heavy wood, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I had won the battle, but the victory tasted like ash. I had fully severed the last tie, not with a lawyer's pen, but with my own voice. I spent the next hour pouring whiskey with Natalie, recounting the confrontation. She did not offer platitudes. She simply listened, validating my choice with her presence. That is the real win, Michael, she said quietly, clinking her glass against mine. The old conditioning tried to take over, and you used your logic and your boundaries to shut him down. You chose self-preservation over performance. The true shock came 4 days later. Philip Hayes called me late Sunday afternoon. Michael, your father's counsel withdrew the motion to challenge your signatory status. They are dropping all attempts to contact you directly. Good, I sighed, relief flooding me. So the threat is gone. The threat is gone, but the situation has changed dramatically, Philip stated. Edward Collins did not file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He filed for Chapter 13. I paused. Chapter 13 was a reorganization of debt, suggesting he had some source of future income or assets he was trying to protect. So he is trying to save something. Exactly. He has found a substantial backer. Someone has stepped up to provide a massive personal loan to cover the most pressing debt and buy him enough time to restructure. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Who? Philip? Who would be crazy enough to bet on Edward's sinking ship? That is the interesting part, Philip said, his voice dropping slightly. The lender is listed as a private investment entity based in Reno, Nevada. The primary contact is listed as the entity's managing director. And the managing director is... Philip paused for dramatic effect. Your mother, Marianne Collins. The phone slipped in my damp grip. Marianne, who had just spent months preaching about Edward's ruin, who had moved to Reno for a fresh start away from his lies, was now bankrolling his attempt to salvage his financial life. But the most unsettling realization was why Marianne had received the bulk of the assets from the St. Louis divorce settlement, the money she was supposed to use to rebuild her own life in the desert. She is bailing him out with her own settlement money, I asked, the absurdity numbing me. She is, Philip confirmed, and I have to imagine she has a deeply personal, non-financial motive for this level of risk. I hung up the answer, slamming into me with the force of a revelation. Marianne had not been buying Edward time. She had been buying his silence. The long-ago mistake of the Cincinnati family was clearly more complicated than a simple affair. It was leverage. The social climbing, image-obsessed Marianne could not tolerate the public humiliation of her ex-husband's bankruptcy case, a case that would inevitably drag her into court and expose all of Edward's secrets, including the depths of his long-term deception and the existence of his second family. Not just to the family, but to the entire St. Louis social circle she had desperately tried to impress. Marianne had not moved on to Reno to heal. She had moved to a safe distance only to now use her financial independence to ensure Edward kept his mouth shut and the Collins name, or at least the appearance of it, stayed out of the public trash heap. I had chosen self-preservation and dignity. Marianne had chosen appearances and quiet compromise. Once house 03-16. The contrast between my hard-won freedom and her willing return to captivity was stark, a final, painful lesson in the different forms family trauma takes. I realized then that while I was free from my father's expectations, I was not yet free from the shadow of my mother's choices. I needed to see Logan. This was too big to process alone. The quiet hum of the mini-fridge in my apartment was the loudest sound in the world. I was free. I had texted Allison back. I had my twin sister Rebecca across the hall and my parents 2 towns over. Yet the freedom felt less like a celebration and more like the heavy silence after a bomb has dropped. I was sitting at a borrowed desk looking over the documents Dad had meticulously collected. The photos were not just evidence. They were a decade compressed into painful stills, a bruise on my arm from a clumsy fall, the subtle flinch captured in a candid dinner shot, the emptiness in my eyes that no amount of forced smiling could hide. The lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Alvarez, specializing in domestic abuse cases, had used the word irrefutable. Stephanie's confession, in front of 70 witnesses recorded by Rebecca, made the restraining order a formality and the divorce a certainty. But divorce was not just a legal procedure. It was an amputation. It meant detaching my identity from the name, the house, the life that had simultaneously sheltered and suffocated me for 12 years. You need to change your name back to your birth name immediately. Michael Ms. Alvarez had instructed on a morning video call, her voice clipped and professional. You are still using your married name on your driver's license and bank accounts. Every link is a liability. It is a key she can use to open your new life. It was a small task, but the request sent a tremor through me to shed the name I had used for a decade, felt like admitting the past 12 years were a failure. A costly, terrifying mistake. But Miss Alvarez was right. Every piece of the old life was a tether. The initial shock of the anniversary night had worn off, replaced by a dull, persistent anxiety that manifested as hypervigilance. Every sudden noise, every unexpected car passing my window sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system. I kept my phone volume low, but the screen became my leash, checking for updates from the outside world. The first major confrontation came not from Stephanie, but from her legal team. They responded to the divorce petition with a counterclaim that was purely strategic and deeply cruel. They did not deny the assault, but they reframed it. Mental instability and reckless behavior. Rebecca read aloud from the document one evening, pacing my small living room, her jaw tight. They are claiming you have a history of depression and anxiety and that you initiated a physical altercation that evening. And Michael, they named me as involved in a premeditated assault on Jenna and Tara, motivated by long-standing familial jealousy. I closed my eyes. It was the same old gaslighting, but written on official letterhead. Stephanie had always weaponized my legitimate struggles with mental health against me, painting me as the fragile one, the dramatic one. They are trying to discredit the witnesses, Rebecca concluded, slamming the papers onto the desk. They know the recording is damning, so they are painting us as 2 unstable people who planned a public scene for attention. It is about control, Michael, I heard Miss Alvarez explain later. Stephanie and her family thrive on narrative control. They are losing the narrative, so they are manufacturing a new one, using your vulnerabilities as ammunition. The good news is your father's evidence, those 3 years of documentation, counteracts every single one of these claims. The emotional toll of being dragged through this public psychological mud was worse than the physical bruises which had faded weeks ago. The bruises were an external testament to Stephanie's cruelty. The legal fight was a forced re-entry into her psychological prison. Then came the professional sting. I had been slowly applying for jobs hoping to restart my career in the Shoreview area. I had focused on small, independent firms, determined to avoid any company that might be connected to Stephanie's powerful family network. I landed an interview for a decent marketing director position at a mid-sized firm, a significant step up from my old salary. I felt a flicker of the old ambition, the man I used to be before Stephanie convinced me I was only capable of small supporting roles. The interview went well. I was called in for a second meeting. The day before my final interview, I received an email from an address I did not recognize. The subject line was simply, "Your future." I hesitated, hand trembling over the mouse. Rebecca, who was sitting beside me going over kickboxing training schedules, saw my pause. "What is it?" she asked. "I do not know," I mumbled, clicking the email open. It was not a threat. Not exactly. It was a single cryptic paragraph. To Michael Turner. "We know you are applying for the director role at Brightpoint Creative. Your past association with a certain prominent family in this city is noted. We believe your personal drama poses a significant liability to a company seeking stability. A simple phone call can make any offer disappear. Focus on your settlement. Your career restart can wait." It was not signed, but the meaning was terrifyingly clear. Stephanie's family, with their network of influence, had reached out subtly, poisoning the well. They were not just fighting the divorce. They were fighting my future. They were ensuring that even if I walked away from the physical prison, I would still be trapped in their economic one. "This is classic," Rebecca said, her voice low after reading it. "They cannot touch you physically, so they are hitting your livelihood. They want you dependent, Michael. They want you weak." But who sent this? I ran a hand through my hair. A lawyer, Stephanie herself, or someone at Brightpoint Creative trying to protect their company. It does not matter who, Rebecca stated, her eyes hard. It matters what you do. Are you going to let an anonymous threat make you drop out of the running for a job you earned? Something old and buried flared inside me, courage, raw and stubborn. Stephanie had spent 12 years telling me I was small, that I needed her status. This anonymous threat was the final extension of that control. To back down now would be to admit she was right. I typed a defiant response to the email, "I will be attending my interview tomorrow. I do not respond to anonymous threats." Then I deleted it. Responding was exactly what they wanted. Instead, I called Ms. Alvarez. "This changes everything," Ms. Alvarez confirmed after reading the forwarded email. "This moves the case from a simple marital dispute to potential interference and retaliation. We can use this, but you have to be ready. You go to that interview. You look them in the eye. And if they rescind the offer, we file a separate tort for civil extortion and professional interference. This is where you fight the system that enabled Stephanie." The next day, I walked into the offices of Brightpoint Creative. I wore the same navy suit I had worn to the anniversary dinner, but this time the shirt underneath was crisp, unblemished, and chosen entirely by me. I felt the scrutiny of the interview panel, their expressions subtly guarded. The lead interviewer, a man named Mr. Dalton, eventually cleared his throat. "Mr. Turner," he said carefully, using my pre-marriage surname, which I had legally restored a week prior. "We are very impressed with your background, but in the interest of full transparency, we have received some external advisories regarding your current marital situation and some of the recent, shall we say, public drama associated with your separation. We are a stable company. We value discretion. Can you reassure us that any personal issues will not bleed into your professional life here?" It was the moment of reckoning. I did not lie, but I did not hide. I met his gaze, thinking of the anonymous email of Stephanie's smiling face in the restaurant. "Mr. Dalton," I said, my voice steady. "What you are referring to is a matter of documented domestic violence and abuse where I was the victim. My family and I stood up to that violence in a public forum because silence was enabling it. That chapter of my life ended with my walking away from a 12-year controlling marriage, leaving behind substantial shared assets to regain my personal safety and autonomy. I leaned forward, slightly emphasizing my point. If discretion means turning a blind eye to abuse, then no, I am not discreet. But if professional stability means I will use the discipline I have shown over the past few months, the courage to rebuild a life from scratch, the meticulous organization of legal defense, the fierce dedication to self-improvement, then yes, I am the most stable and motivated candidate you will ever find. The only thing I will be bringing to this job is the absolute certainty of my own value. The table was silent. The conflict was laid bare. Stephanie's world of superficial stability versus Michael Turner's hard-won true self-worth. Mr. Dalton exchanged glances with his colleagues. The air was thick with tension. Finally, he gave a slow nod. "We appreciate your candor, Mr. Turner," he said. "We will be in touch by the end of the week." I left the building feeling utterly drained but triumphant. I had faced the systemic pressure and not flinched. The victory was personal regardless of the job outcome. The week ended with a meeting at Ms. Alvarez's office. A final mediation session with Stephanie's legal team before the judge was scheduled to sign the final papers. Rebecca insisted on coming sitting next to me in a leather jacket that was utterly out of place. Her presence, a silent, powerful guardrail. Stephanie was there too. She was wearing an expensive tailored suit, her hair perfectly styled, her face devoid of any emotion. She looked less like a wife and more like a CEO waiting to finalize a hostile takeover. The air conditioning hummed, but the room felt suffocating. We went through the motions: property division, spousal support, which she was fighting, claiming I was the financially dependent one. Then the moment came for the final offer. Stephanie's lawyer, a gray-haired man who looked bored by the whole affair, pushed a document across the polished mahogany table. "Mr. Turner," he stated dryly, "my client is prepared to waive all rights to the primary marital residence and offer a generous one-time settlement far exceeding the legally required amount on the condition that you sign this non-disclosure agreement." I frowned, looking at the document. It was thick, dense with legal jargon, but the core demand was unmistakably clear. I could never speak of the marriage, never speak of the abuse, never speak the names Stephanie, Jenna, or Tara again, never mention the events of the Shoreview Bay restaurant anniversary dinner, ever. My client is aware this NDA cannot erase criminal accusations, but it serves as a psychological and strategic tool to secure silence moving forward. And if I refuse, I asked, my voice calm, though my heart pounded like a drum in my chest. The lawyer gave a faint, knowing smile. He slid another smaller sheet of paper across the table. It was a formal communication from the firm, but the message was meant for me. "Mr. Turner," he began, his tone shifting, "no longer bored but cold and deliberate. We have reason to believe that should you refuse this offer, your name may circulate informally through hiring circles in this city, making companies hesitant to take a risk on you, citing behavioral instability and litigious history." My stomach twisted. He continued, "You will not work here again. Sign the NDA. Take the money and you may relocate and restart your career elsewhere. Refuse and you may keep your silence, but you will lose your future." I stared down at the document. The NDA. $500,000, $1,000. Freedom from their constant legal harassment only if I surrendered my story. The alternative, keep my voice, but lose the city, lose my support network, lose the chance at Brightpoint Creative, which I hadn't even heard back from yet. The room went utterly still. Stephanie finally really looked at me for the first time in months. There was a cold triumph in her eyes, a silent declaration. I still control the narrative. My hand curled into a fist, and then Rebecca's hand landed firmly on my shoulder. a grounding weight, a reminder of the person I had become and the people I now stood with. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her presence alone told me, choose yourself.